All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is part 3 of our brown bag series on DME billing for back and knee braces. And today's Tuesday, July 6th of 2021. Our last of the 3-part trilogy that we're doing on the billing for back and knee braces is all going to be centered around how to become a custom orthotic fitter of back and knee braces. And as you listen to this presentation, you will begin to understand why it's important for you to know about becoming a custom orthotic fitter of back and knee braces, and why in certain cases it's in order for you to dispense back and knee braces, you will have to have this certification. And I have a guest with me, Minerva Mendoza, and she is, I'm going to let her, actually, I'll just let her tell you about herself. Minerva, welcome to the presentation today.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me. I appreciate Matt's introduction and connection between us. My name, like Lisa mentioned, is Minerva Mendoza, and there are 2 sides to our business. Consultants PRN focuses on helping clients become accredited, with any of the deemed accreditors. And then we've got O&P education, which is continuing education for those individuals in the O&P industry, whether it be a prosthetist, orthotist, orthotic fitter, mastectomy fitter, therapeutic shoe fitter. We also have, by way of, for this presentation, we have a fitter classes, which you'll hear us reference. We'll touch on orthotic fitters today. We've got these courses that have moved online that used to be face-to-face, and orthotic fitter is one of them. And so that's what we do. We specialize in those 2 areas, and the continuing education is all done online.
Thank you so much, Minerva, about that. And Minerva and I have been talking for the last few months now in conjunction with Matt Snyder of JMS Med Supply, who you all, if you took the first part of our course a few weeks ago, you would have met Matt, and he would have told you about ordering and the whole concept of being a DME supplier. And then, of course, last week we talked about how to become enrolled as a DME supplier with Medicare. And when Minerva talks about the accreditation part of it, and that consultants PRN assists with, we discussed that last week as far as let me make sure I unmuted myself here. Hold on a second. Did I unmute myself? Yeah, I did. So we basically talked about that, and we talked about how in certain cases you would be required to become accredited in order for you to receive a certification through Medicare as a DME supplier. And so, you know, the question is why are we here today? So Minerva, I'm gonna let you talk about this a little bit, because when you explained it to me, you explained it so eloquently. I just think that it would probably be best coming from you, and we'll go ahead and let you take this away.
Okay, not a problem. So we know that effective January 1st, spinal and knee braces went into competitive bidding, right? You can find more information at www.dmecompetitivebidding.com. I can send out the link to you, Lisa. It is a complex topic to explain. And so if you weren't part of that and you weren't awarded a bid by CMS for spinal or knee braces, then this probably, affected your business. What we found the industry has had to do is they've kind of had to find an alternative to be able to do bracing. And so Specifically, what the industry has done is kind of shifted into, okay, so maybe we should expand to being able to also do custom fit braces. And so the in order to be enrolled with Medicare, right, and be able to do custom fit braces, you have to become accredited. That's mandatory effective 2009. And so what we have found is that custom fit braces are not part of competitive bidding. So that alternative is open to all DMEs, not just O&P facilities with orthotists or those type of clinicians that can provide. Um, we do know that there are these DME POS quality standards, right, which are essentially the guiding principles. It's the law for accreditation and that everybody has to meet. And there is this Appendix C in the quality standards that indicates that individuals have to have specialized training to be able to do and fit custom fit braces. So those people with specialized training are defined in the DEMI Post Quality Standard as mentioned in Appendix C. However, the Board of Certification and Accreditation, which you'll hear us mention as BOC, BOC is one of the two national agencies that certify our clinicians in the O&P industry. Okay, and so they are the ones that went to CMS. First, they went to the DME Max, and then they also clarified with CMS and said, hey, wait a minute, a certified orthotic fitter also falls under the specialized training definition according to Medicare's definition. And CMS accepted that, yes, there is correspondence that where they accept that according to the scope of practice of an orthotic fitter, they are considered also to have specialized training. To be clear, what we reference as having, or what Medicare defines as having specialized training is some examples are like an MD, a DO. We call it the alphabet soup. And so if you're not part of this alphabet soup, which includes MDs, DOs, PTs, PAs, I believe there's mention of CNS or an orthotist, and now an orthotic fitter, you are not supposed to be doing custom fit bracing. So that's a good question. What's the difference between an orthotist and a certified orthotic fitter? Essentially, it's a 4-year degree. An orthotist, there are requirements both by the two national agencies, ABC and BOC, that you can that we can send you the links to, that you can visit on their websites. But an orthotist has certain requirements, and essentially it's a 4-year degree. A certified orthotic fitter is a certification. And so when you go apply to become an orthotic fitter, one of the requirements is that you attend a prerequisite course and that you have at least 1,000 hours of patient care experience. And so that's where we come in, that you would then actually take an exam with BOC through application and or ABC to become a certified orthotic fitter. So there's no need for a degree. There are a couple of different pathways to becoming an orthotic fitter that you can look into both the ABC and the BOC websites.
So, one of the things you talked about the alphabet soup, Minerva, and we at Gold Star Medical, we have a large contingency of clients who are doctors of chiropractic. And I'm pretty sure that when I look at my attendee list, many of my attendees are either doctors of chiropractic or they are privately held medical companies, medical organizations that have had to enroll as a medical supply company. And so they are not part of the alphabet soup, isn't that correct?
Yes, and unfortunately, they are not.
Yeah. And so what that means is they have to get that certification in order to be able to do prefabricated, custom fitted braces for their Medicare patients, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
In order to be able to bill for the custom fit category.
gotcha. So tell me a little bit about, you and I have had some discussion about state licensure again, as well. Obviously this can be a fairly complicated process, and we're going to try to keep it as simple as possible for our listeners. But let's talk a little bit about state requirements that kind of layer either on top of the federal requirements.
Yes. So I know that there was Medicare communication that went out that indicates effective October 1st, I believe. They're going to be updating the licensure database, right? And so now there's going to be a total of 17 total states, 17 states that will have licensure related to prefabricated custom fit and the fabrication of orthoses. And so the communication is a little vague because it indicates that you should be you should select yourself as a medical supply company with orthotic personnel if you meet the requirements, but that you should also check your state licensure to be sure that you're licensed appropriately, or your individuals have the appropriate certifications or the appropriate state licensure. Unfortunately, when it comes to billing Medicare, state supersedes the federal requirement. However, if there is we encourage everyone to go talk to their state, seek exemptions. Sometimes there are exemptions for example, DCs in Florida and Texas when it comes to the licensure with the state. However, then you've also got to meet the federal requirement, right? Um, if there was licensure, then you've met it, and the National Supplier Clearinghouse, or what we call the NSC, will accept that licensure, and then you can select, the category where you categorize yourself as a medical supply company with orthotic personnel. However, if there's exemption or no licensure, then the next step is to meet that federal requirement. And so then that takes you back to the DMEPOS or the DMEPOS quality standards, and where it indicates that if you're not part of that alphabet soup, then you are not considered to have that specialized training. I will say that we also have, the NPs, for example, they lobbied, right? And they got into the quality standards. And so they're specifically mentioned in the quality standards. And so they, at least in my experience, I have had many of them say, I don't have a whole lot of training. So for liability purposes, for backup purposes as well, if you have a lot of turnover in your facility, we encourage people to at least take the prerequisite, and it doesn't hurt to take the exam and become certified. So then you would be able to update, of course, your accreditor that you meet those certifications or licensure requirements, and then update your 855S enrollment to make sure that you're able to bill. And always remember, if you have turnover and you have presented the license or the certification of an individual that was on staff, even though you're allowed to bill for those categories because your enrollment says so and your accreditation indicates such, you should be very careful and not to bill while you're filling a position or fit any braces until you have a certified or licensed individual on staff and have updated your enrollment and your.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, Minerva, because that is an issue, that providers have, is they may have a nurse practitioner or PA that has gone through the training and has gotten that certification, and then they leave. You've updated the Medicare record, but the Medicare record is tied now to that certification of that individual. So if that individual leaves, then you have to be very, very careful about continuing to bill until you get another person who is certified, especially if you are required to meet these requirements of certification um, based on the type of enrollment that you have with Medicare. So if you had to go, the bottom line is if you had to go through accreditation, a DC, who owns 100% of that medical corporation and has had to enroll as a medical supply company, or a private citizen who is enrolled as a medical supply company with orthotist certification, then you are going to have to make sure that you maintain that orthotist certification in spite of any staff turnover. So you have to think about that very, very carefully as you're doing these. Now, the good news is, and you'll be able to see this as we move forward, is that the certification is not expensive. So it's definitely worth it to send your providers to get this certification, not only for the certification itself, but for the experience, for the documentation, learning how to meet those documentation requirements. So this is a very, very valuable certification to obtain. I'm just going to show you, Minerva mentioned the National Supplier Clearinghouse. We talked about this last week in our presentation. And so I just pretty much copied and pasted the information about the National Supplier Clearinghouse to this PowerPoint as well. And when we talk about the state licensure and the state licensure requirements, one of the places to go and look for any state licensure requirements is the licensure database through the National Supplier Clearinghouse. Now, I do need to caution you about this because we're approaching an update to that. As Minerva said, the update is going to be around October 1st, which always coincides, by the way, October 1st always coincides with the beginning of the federal fiscal year. So that's when, for example, your ICD-10 codes are updated, and the National Supplier Clearinghouse will also be updating their licensure database. So even though you go into the licensure database to look for specific additional licensure requirements, you will want to verify that with your state. This is just a starting place. It's not the be all and end all. So make sure you don't just use this licensure database as the gospel for what you may or may not need. As Minerva said, there may be exemptions that are not posted in the National Supplier Clearinghouse licensure database. And there may be the information on the database may be a bit outdated. So just make sure you always verify with your state for any requirements. But to look up the licensure database, you would go to the NSC website and go to on the homepage, there's a link for the licensure database. And there's also, if you go to the tools, there's another way to get into the licensure database. And once you get into that page, then there's a link to view your DME, your DME POS state license directory. And then you can look up the state that you're in. You can even look up by product and service. And if you click on that state and you want to find out if you need a special requirement, then you would look up the orthoses prefabricated custom fitted category to see if there are additional requirements needed for you on the state side of things. So just be aware of that and make sure that you do your due diligence in obtaining and finding out if you need that additional state licensure. So Minerva, talk to us a little bit about that, about the Certified Orthotic Fitter course, through your company, and tell us a little bit about how that actually works. You are you're you were muted, so
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So through the education side of our business, which is O&P education, um, our fitter courses have been accepted and approved by both BOC and ABC. Um, it meets the yes, it meets the BOC accreditation requirements, but it meets specifically for the orthotic fitter course, it meets the prerequisite sponsor requirement. And so, as mentioned previously, if you go and you just pull the BOC application and you want to apply to become a certified orthotic fitter, there are two main requirements, and that's number one, that you've attended a prerequisite course. That's where we come in, and then number two would be the experience requirement. At least 1,000 hours of patient care experience. And you've been in practice for about 6 months. I have some people that kind of question their patient care experience, but if you've been, especially like for the DC population, if you've been in practice for at least 6 months, you definitely meet that. Okay. So it is a 2-part course. What we've done is the first part has always been online. It's we register and you are assigned 21 PowerPoints to complete at your convenience. You have as many tries to pass with an 80 or better, and it's all part of the learning process. When you finish part 1, then you can move on to part 2. So you call us. Right now, our course has been approved through September. We anticipate having further approval to the end of the year, but that has not been published yet. So you have sufficient time to get started, at least in part 1. And then when you finish, you call us and you say, okay, I'm ready for part 2. And so the difference with us as a prerequisite sponsor is that we use the tools that we have that we used to take to our face-to-face classes. And so we have inventory boxes that we loan out. And so part 2 includes proving that you're competent in fitting. So we will assign you video instruction to watch, and then we walk you through this entire process so that you've got to fit these braces and prove that you did. So you do that by taking 2 pictures of the final fit for each device. And then for about half of the devices that you fit, you would write SOAP notes and just make up a scenario and pretend, this with your pretend patient, and turn in that information to us via Google Drive or Dropbox. And then we assign you to an instructor who reviews the information and provides you feedback. The feedback call is about 30 minutes, and it's meant to really just stimulate the thought process before you go and apply to test with BOC. BOC offers us a $50 coupon towards the exam and for all of our participants. And so we send you all of the information, and including a study guide that where you can continue studying and preparing for that exam while the information is fresh. We also push everyone to try to test while the information is fresh, and to test right away. BOC is now offering a link where you can schedule to test from the comfort of your home or office. So you don't even have to go out to an H&R Block to do that. And it is a multiple choice exam. So you're done. When you're done with the prerequisite, you're done with the hands-on, okay? All you got to do is just go test with BOC and become certified.
and then do they receive some type of a certificate from the BOC that they can put up on their walls in the clinic to show that they are certified orthotic fitters?
Yes, absolutely. So you
That's
do.
so awesome.
Yes, and that's the certification, the certificate that you use to update Medicare.
Terrific, terrific. So, I'm sure everybody is wanting to know about the cost of the course. And I know that your cost is $499. Would you talk a little bit about that and about maybe any other costs that you might be aware of with relation to getting certified?
Absolutely. So our course is actually discounted. It was $5.99 when we used to travel and meet people face to face, but we've been able to discount it to $4.99 because we know not everybody is going to have all of the devices to fit. And so we anticipate that the majority of the participants are going to be requesting loaner boxes. And so there is a shipping and handling fee. Um, Depending on where you are in the country, it averages around $120 total to and from. And so that's the only additional fee that you can expect. Then you've got the testing fee, of course, with for the exam, right? With BOC. BOC's total charge, I believe, is $350, and then of course you've got the $50 coupon, so it comes out to about $300. State licensure fees. I used to do national licensure, and I can tell you that they all vary. Okay, if they apply to your state, it varies. It depends on the state. So we don't have a number for you, but there could be that extra fee for you.
And then here is the information on how to sign up. Minerva, just talk a little bit about that.
Yes, when you get to our landing page, so the onpedu.com, select fitter courses, and then we've got the blurb on the orthotic fitter class, and you can click on read more, which takes you to the actual constant contact ad. And we do want you to read, of course, the terms of what's involved, and then you can pay online. And once we get the information, then we go ahead and we send your username and login so that you can start your PowerPoints right away. You'll get that normally within the hour, depending on the time of day. Or if you'd like to simplify a little bit more and you like more assistance and have some additional questions, you can always call the number, the 530-229-0337. And both, it'll either be Carmina or myself that will be answering the phone. So you can talk to both of us about the orthotic fitter course, and we'll guide you. We can even take your credit card over the phone.
Thank you so much, Minerva. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us as far as the whole process? Is anything that I've missed? Because I'm kind of leaning on you here as the expert on this, and maybe if you have any final thoughts, that would be just great. And then we'll take any questions that some of the attendees may have.
I guess the one final thought that I have, aside from thanking you, Lisa, for this opportunity, I have two thoughts. One of them, if you have any questions, I'm offering. Let me offer my cell phone number. If you're like me in any way, I forget things the next day. So if you forget all of these details about the orthotic fitter course, or you have any accreditation questions that we can help you with as far as like implementation, we try to simplify that process for you. So yes, my cell phone number is 210-687-4726. The other thought that comes to mind is something that I recently heard. If you have any doubt in your mind, or you think that this isn't applied to my practice, again, you can call us. But I recently heard that, and I don't know, Lisa, if you have had the same experience, but Blue Cross Blue Shield had some repayments or recoups that they implemented from DCs. So I'm pushing everyone to really look at their private payer contracts, because we're seeing more and more that they also are requiring certified or licensed individuals on staff if you're doing custom fit braces.
That is a great point. And yes, you're right. Now, I will say that most of the time when we see recoupments, it's not necessarily because of certification or lack therein, but it's because of insufficient or poor documentation requirements. But that in and of itself, and honestly, Minerva, you know, when you and I started talking about all of this, and you told me that the second part of the exam of the course was teaching the providers how to write a SOAP note, I got very jazzed about that because here's the deal with DME. I always tell my clients, if you're going to dispense DME or any type of medical supply, whether it's braces or any other type of DME, you have standard documentation requirements that you need to meet. And it is not it's not usually an if you're going to get audited, it's a when you're going to get audited, because DME is the most audited medical specialty out there, period. There's nothing that is audited more than DME, because Medicare and other private payers see so much fraud and misuse of billing of DME and billing errors. And so when you told me for $500, you know, plus a course fee, you know, really less than $1,000, you have providers that can become fully trained on how to become a certified orthotic fitter in their practice. Okay, regardless of whether you've ever even become a Medicare supplier of back and knee braces, to be able to have that certification from a malpractice standpoint, from a legitimacy standpoint, to have that certification on your wall is huge. And then to be able to know and be confident in the documentation requirements and knowing what's going to be expected of you. I mean, if it were me and I were a provider and I was kind of messing around with fitting orthoses on patients, no matter how much experience I had, I would want to get that certification. And so I feel that it is, you know, really much more than just getting certified with Medicare. You know, I think it will give our providers more confidence to dispense more braces. I think it will give them more confidence in the whole audit process and not be afraid to dispense because they're afraid of recoupments. And so I just think that there's really no downside to this at all. I mean, the cost is reasonable. The rationale for doing it is multifaceted. It's not just about getting your Medicare certification. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it's beneficial for you, as if you're listening to this, to go ahead and get that certification. So, you know, I just want to thank you and thank Matt from JMS for bringing your program to our attention, because to me, this is just a wonderful way for providers who are thinking about dabbling into DME and bracing to really be able to do it with confidence, you know? And so what I want to find out now is, do we have anybody that has typed in any questions? I don't see anything in the Q&A. I'm going to look in the chat box. So there was a question saying, do all offices need to be certified, even those that have the 5% MD ownership? And I think Minerva, you explained it. If they have the 5% MD ownership and they are enrolled as a non-accredited supplier, meaning an MD who is providing that DME to their own patients, for the use of their own patients, and they're not selling to the general public. So the question is do they need to be certified as orthotic fitters?
That's a great question. And no, they have the exemption right from accreditation, and they are also allowed to do spinal and knee braces, are not part of competitive bidding. So, okay. Right, there's no requirement for them to have certified individuals.
There's no requirement, but I'm still going to say I'd recommend it, because even though there's no requirement, you still have situations where you've got MD owned, they've gone ahead and they've, especially last year with COVID, we had so many doctors, MDs or MD owned medical corporations who went ahead and got their DME PTANs through Medicare. And now they're experiencing audits, and now they're starting to experience, some of them are starting to experience recoupments and takebacks, because what they did was, like, I hate to say this, a lot of doctors, they start something, they launch into it without all the fullness of the training and the background on how to do it properly. The documentation is deficient, and now all of a sudden they're getting takebacks. So, really, for essentially for the reimbursement of one brace, they can go ahead and get this certification and have all the confidence that what they're doing is correct from the standpoint of how they're dispensing and fitting these braces. So again, to me, it's not just about the certification and whether that certification is required for competitive bidding. I think it's required for anybody that wants to custom fit braces. So, that's my opinion. And obviously, providers may have different opinion about that, but I've just seen enough from the standpoint of audits to know that, unfortunately, what we're seeing is that most of the time there are going to be takebacks because of deficiencies in documentation and in the standards that were not met when the providers began doing custom fitted orthotics. So that's just my thought about that. But I think that there's a lot to be said. Minerva, would you agree with that?
Yes, those are actually great points. Absolutely. We have had clinicians go through our course that were not required to do so for liability purposes.
Yeah.
These are custom fit devices where you don't want to risk, somebody else on your staff fitting them without the experience. Also, the LCD, the local coverage criteria determination, or the coverage criteria, right? It's not clear on how you should document when it comes to these custom fittings. And so I am happy to speak to anybody who is looking for any. I actually offer a free webinar to our clients, or anybody really interested, because what I find is the question that comes back after our clients start billing is, the main question is, okay, so how do I document, a custom fitting? Because I refer everybody to the LCD, right? Well, if it's not clear, we needed to add value to our services and be sure that people had the resources to know what constitute a custom fitting versus an off the shelf. And so we've got a free webinar that we offer that I'm happy to open up to your clients as well. If anybody is unsure when it comes to that kind of documentation, and send you an invite for that webinar.
I have to unmute myself. I would love that. As a matter of fact, Minerva, you and I can talk about that. I might even be able to post the link to that webinar on the Gold Star Medical website, and link it directly over to your website. So what you and I can kind of talk about the widgets on that, but definitely I think a lot of our clients, and even my account managers who do billing for our clients, would love to have that, and love to be able to provide that link to their clients, as far as if they feel that their clients are maybe a little bit deficient in their documentation. So I think that would be a great thing to do. So thank you for that offer. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. Well, I don't see any other questions. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds to see if anybody, if you do have a question, and you don't have time to type it in, there is I believe you I think there's a hand raise. Oh, I don't see that on this particular one, but If you do have any other questions after the fact, feel free to give us a call. Or again, I'm going to just post Minerva's information again. You can call ONP EDU and discuss any of your questions or concerns with Minerva. And I want to thank all of you for attending again. This is the last of our 3-part series. And I will, as the other 2, I'll have it posted on our YouTube channel. I'll have it posted on our website. And I wish all of you the very best. Minerva, thank you so much for co-sponsoring this with me and co-presenting. It's been fun. I love collaborating on stuff like this.
It's my pleasure, and thank you, and thank Matt.
Okay, you all take care and have a wonderful rest of your day.